introduce our trainer. Without wasting much more time, I would like to welcome Mr. Mulindwa. Mr. Mulindwa, please. We may not get Dr. back soon, but please take over and we start our training. Thank you, Mr. Mulindwa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rogers Mukisa, and I welcome you, dear members, pig producers, and those who are aspiring to join the business. My name is Christopher Mulindwa. I work with Prime Pork Uganda Limited. We deal in pork genetics, feeds, and consultancy services. So today we are going to be focusing on pig nutrition, and we will so much rotate around the finishing animals. Of course, we will talk about the reproductive side as well. They have to move together, but most of the focus will be on the animals grown for slaughter. We have some notes to take before we move forward. We need to understand that pig feeding accounts for the biggest production budget, and it is over 70%. So the rest of the inputs takes about 30% of the total production budget. Genetics is a very minor component. Management, environment, etc. are all minor components of the production budget. The biggest component that requires quite a huge budget is nutrition, is feeding. That should be at the back of your mind. Feed wastage can largely influence farm profitability. Majority of the farms in Africa don't care about feed wastage. In Europe, it is said that for every 100,000 USD spent, about $3,000 is lost in feed wastage. And this is majorly in farms where attention is not properly paid to reducing wasting feed on the farm. So feed wastage in Africa, we need some studies to come up with reliable data about it. But majority of the farms lose a lot of feed. Some farms have good genetics, but the challenge, the problem as to why their farms are not profitable is because most of the feed that they buy is not consumed by the animal. It is wasted from the store to the pig feed troughs, and even within the feed troughs. We don't have enough time to exhaust everything about nutrition. Maybe we tackle other areas later, but there are feed troughs that you may think are cheap to use, but very expensive in the long run, given that they facilitate feed wastage. For example, our usual troughs, the concrete troughs. You know, some farmers construct a portion, space for feed and space for water. Now, what happens when the pig eats some feed? It goes, drinks some water, eats feed, drink water, and then maybe the feed is too much in the trough and it doesn't finish it. The next morning, it has fermented, it has gone bad, it has developed mold. The pig doesn't want to eat it. Then you see the workers removing the feed, taking it to the dumping site. And this is feed that you used money to purchase. And you purchased it with a mindset that it would be consumed by the pigs and it would result into profitable weight. But you're now scooping it to take it to the dumping site. So these are issues that we must critically look at. It's not enough to buy a quality feed. It's not enough to have quality genetics, to have proper management on the farm, and to have sources for water and everything, but lazy with managing feed wastage. Another point to note that is very important is feed intake impacts performance. In today's pig production, our worry is not on how much a pig consumes per day, because pigs of today consume very little food. The consumption is very small. They consume less. Therefore, in the finishing herd, it is very important that you allow the pigs to have food at all times so that they can consume at will and then exercise their ability to generate as much weight as possible. We can do some restrictions, most especially in the reproductive herd, because feeding in the reproductive herd has its own objectives. We are feeding for the animal not to grow very fat. And in some instances, in the reproductive herd, we only allow ad libitum feeding during, free eating at free will during lactation. In the reproductive herd, we don't manage feed intake during lactation. But if a reproductive pig, a sow, is not lactating, its feed is kind of restricted. We will talk about that probably later. There are many factors that cause reduced feed intake, and of course, heat stress. So this points us to a factor that when you're constructing pig houses, you must ensure that there is efficient airflow so that consistently hot air is replaced by fresh air. And also, we must ensure that the space given to each individual in a group is ideal. Okay? And we also have to ensure that our animals are not sick, because a sick animal, of course, cannot consume food adequately. Competition. So the troughs that you have in your pig pen, most especially pigs kept in the group, are they enough? Do they match the group members to ensure that each pig has access to the trough whenever it needs to? Okay. Also, matching weights and age. If you're going to group heavy animals with smaller animals. Some animals are bullies. They might be satisfied, but whenever they see these tiny animals that are of less weight than them go to the feed trough, they stand up and chase them away. So it is important that even in grouping, you keep on regrouping to ensure that animals of uniform weight are kept together because they are strong enough to encounter the bullying of the group members. To reduce competition and to reduce uniformity, to increase uniformity when you go to the market. It is not good to have some animals at 100 kilograms and then some are just 70 or 60 kilograms. Yet you have kept them in the same, they are of the same age. They have utilized the same amount of resources. It would be a loss on your side. Empty troughs, like I said, today ad libitum feeding is very important in the commercial herd. So do not feed to save. In this modern world where we have improved genetics, we don't feed to save. We feed to profit. So animals must be given feeds adequately. There is no single feedstuff that supplies all nutrients required by the pig. And also, pigs at different levels requires different amounts, percentages of nutrients. Therefore, if you're spending money on buying maize bran and maize to feed these animals, just know that what you're doing might not profit you. In fact, you might end up producing a pig that is similar to that of someone who is tethering, who is fetching Maragaran, etc., and feed the animal. Because maize bran alone, or maize bran with some bit of broken maize, will not supply all the nutrients required by the pig. All individual feedstuffs must work together to provide a balanced diet to these animals. Each feed nutrient has its own function. Therefore, different feedstuffs work together to make a complete feed, to make a balanced diet. A balanced diet will cause proper growth of your animals. Therefore, be very careful when you're spending money. Spending money on maize bran or on broken maize alone might not help much. It has to be a balanced diet. And finally, a successful nutritional program is built on proper genetics, proper health management and environment, and a good market. If you can remember, last Saturday, we talked about the pillars of commercial pig production, and they included genetics, nutrition, health management and environment, and market. You must understand what your market requires when you're choosing your feeding strategy. And as well, when you're choosing your genetics, you must understand your market properly. Because I hear some people, it's like the local and broiler chicken. Someone will tell you, for me, I want that that pig that has fed on sweet potato vines and everything, on pasture. So if that is what your market requires, just go with that. Just in case the market will pay more for the time wasted, because if you're going to grow pig on pasture, it is going to take too long to grow. And even though it grows up, the weight that you will harvest at the end, it will be very minimal. So someone must be paying you more money for all that loss that you're going to make. Now, still in the modern pig production, the focus is on efficiency. You have limited control over factors influencing feed prices. I believe every active pig farmer is well aware that about 3 months ago, we've been going through a challenge of increased prices for maize and maize bran. We literally have no control over this. Sometimes the prices for the oiled soy also goes up. We have no control. We don't work in the oil factory. We don't, majority are not maize farmers. Therefore, your control over prices is very limited. Someone is saying something? Okay. Your control over these prices is very, very limited. Therefore, how can you survive these harsh conditions when they are live? Today, maize is a little bit cheaper, and maize bran has gone down as well. But years back, we used to get maize bran at 500 Uganda shillings, and maize at 700, 600 Uganda shillings. It has gone up now. And as it goes up, it hardly comes down. It comes down by a few shillings. Now, how can you still survive profitably? Think about efficiency. Focus on efficiency. What do I mean in this? Like I said last time, in a pig farm, we have two different herds. We have the reproductive herd, and we have the commercial herd. When you're planning a pig for slaughter, you must focus on both herds, most especially if you're following to finish. And in case you're not following to finish, you must be sure that you collected the piglets you're going to fatten from the right source. The source that guarantee quality of the piglets that you're going to fatten. The performance parameters must be properly defined. You must, the supplier must know the average daily gain of these animals, the feed conversion ratio, the killing out percentage, the balance of both the back fat and the intramuscular fat. Okay? That is on the side of those who are just buying piglets for fattening. By the way, for people who are, interested in doing fattening, and those who are interested in doing following to win, we have a huge discount on the concentrates to enable you become efficient in business. So it is something for you to look out And I'll probably talk about it more when I'm concluding this presentation. I request you to go back to the previous slide a bit. On the reproductive heart, we have to increase the following rate. So how do we benefit from the increased following rate? How does it make our production more efficient? Following rate means that majority of the pigs that you inseminate give birth. There is reduced number, the number of sows or gilts that come back on heat are minimal. So you have to ensure that heat detection is proper. You have to ensure that insemination is done properly. You have to ensure that the bull semen is stored, transported properly, so that your following rate is high at the end of the day. If your following rate is high, it means that you save time. You save money. If your sow repeats, you need to wait again for about 21 days. Now, within these 21 days, this sow is consuming food. It is eating food. It is occupying space. You're spending labor, utilities. And that means that this sow has consumed the part of your profit. And therefore, for each sow that repeats, the cost of the piglets produced by that sow are more expensive than the sow that didn't repeat, because the cost of managing it from the time, it is even more than that. From the time that it was inseminated to the time it was confirmed not pregnant, the cost is transferred to the litter that it will, follow in the future. And that means that each piglet will be a few shillings more expensive. And therefore, you cannot be competitive in the market. Okay? Increase the number of piglets weaned. A farmer who wins 5 piglets will have each piglet more expensive than a farmer who wins 15 piglets. If I win the 15 piglets and you win 8 piglets, we all spend the same amount of food, the same amount of time, the same amount of labor, everything. And the cost of piglet, the cost of production per piglet for someone who in the 15 will be lower than the cost of production per piglet for someone who is winning 8 piglets. Therefore, winning more piglets is more beneficial. Reduce your production cost. And where production cost is reduced, it means that your profitability is increased. The number of piglets produced per sow per lifetime. And all this comes back to genetics. So you must ensure, because there is an initial investment in every sow that you bring on farm. You buy it, you spend money on it. You must ensure that this sow pays back efficiently. So it should give you as much piglets as possible before it is culled off from the farm. The improved following index. Some of you do poor feeding during lactation, and then your sows take longer to come back on heat again. And you receive minimal liters in a year. This reduces your farm efficiency and therefore your farm profitability. Because whether you got 2.5 liters in a year, pallets, whether you got 2.5 pallets or you got 2 pallets or 1 pallet in a year, the cost of nutrition is almost the same in a year. There is no way you can compete with someone who is efficiently getting 2.5 pallets in a year. Therefore, it is important that you ensure that you properly feed these animals and you properly detect heat so that you have more pallets per sow per year. On the side of the commercial herd, we have the average daily gain. Ensure that the animals are efficient in converting feed into weight, the feed conversion ratio. The animals must need little food to generate 1,000 grams of live body weight. The killing out percentage. This is important, most especially to you farmers who grow your animals and take them to the market and sell carcasses. How much do you lose as offal? An efficient animal must lose between 25 to 30%. So if you're keeping good genetics, out of 100 kilograms, you must be able to receive back 75 kilograms of carcass. And the 25 can go in offal. The balance of both the back fat and the intramuscular fat. We must understand that our market does not demand fat. In fact, our market still has challenges with the intramuscular fat as well. Our market demands leaner animals. So it doesn't make sense for you to produce a fatty animal and then it's not bought at premium prices when you go to the market. It's better that you look for animals that are leaner and animals that have minimal intramuscular fat. Intramuscular fat means fat deposit in the muscle, in the meat. Leave alone the skin, the fat in the skin, but the fat that is deposited within the muscle, within the meat. Now, when we talk about feeding, we have 3 main strategies for you to choose from. The first strategy is improvised feeding. Improvised feeding is the traditional feeding strategy. We grew up keeping pigs at home. And the kitchen scraps, the non-valuable roots from the garden, cassava, sweet potato, the sweet potato vines, the cocoyam leaves. Some people use blue's waste, the sweet potato silage. All this is improvised feeding. The biggest challenge with this type of feeding is that the nutrient composition is not clearly defined. So because the nutrient composition is not clearly defined, it is not a good strategy for commercialized operations. Just a moment.
Please let us remember to drop our
I'm
comments
so sorry about that.
to the chat.
I was saying that this kind of strategy is not ideal for someone who is doing commercialized production. So if you're going into commercialized production, it is important that the inputs you use, starting from genetics to feeds, are definable. The nutrients must be definable. You must know the percentage of carbohydrates, of proteins, of everything. And you must be sure that this animal is receiving the right quantities of each nutrient that it requires for it to perform its metabolic requirements, and then give you profit in form of weight gain. So improvised feeding, of course, there are things that we can't just eliminate. We still have our grandmothers, grandfathers in the village who are keeping 1 or 2 pigs, and they are not doing something commercial. It is subsistence, keeping the animal. If God wishes, the animal will grow. If God doesn't wish, it will die. So they depend on that. And when time comes, they sell and make some money. So they still use that. So my advice to them is that instead of wasting the sweet potato vines, it's better you make the sweet potato silage. There has been very good research about this. And if you properly use the sweet potato silage alongside the feed stuff, you might get a little better performance. And also, it will help you to reduce the wastage of your sweet potato vines. You're not harvesting the vines on a daily basis. So in one way or the other, you need to preserve them. And the best way to preserve them is by making the sweet potato silage. So that is for that category of farmers. The tethering farmer and those who are keeping 1 or 2 pigs at home in the backyard. Now, another strategy is the complete feed. In Q-Feed, we have a complete feed, and we want to sell it. But I'll be frank with you. If you're going into serious business, strategy number 3 is the best for you. It is a little complicated, most especially with proper mixing of the feed, but it is the right strategy for every commercialized operation. To do your own, to make your own feed on farm. With the complete feed, what I mean is that you go to the feed shop and buy ready to serve feeds. For example, the gestation meal, the lactation meal, the starter meal, the grower meal, the finisher meal, all are available in the feed shop. And they're also available with the Q-Feed. So for operations that are smaller, you can do proper mixing. It is the best strategy. But if you're doing commercialized operation, it's better to buy the different components independently and do mixing from your farm. So you make all feeds, all feed types from your own farm. Feed formulation. Feed formulation is a very important aspect in commercial pig production. And this is the main reason we need nutritional companies. One of the major contribution of these nutritional companies is formulation, is research. Formulation is not an easy job. Some people send me messages. can you make for me a formula? Formulation is not an easy job. You have to generate a formula and test it over time. I tell you, even from a very experienced expert, it is possible to generate a formula that will not work. You know, there are a number of factors that are looked at when generating a given formula. You look at the cost of the ingredients, the nutrient composition of the ingredients, and very many other factors. So you have also to be balanced to ensure that the formula you're generating delivers economic value to the farm that is going to use it. And usually the problem is between balancing the nutritional requirements and the economic value. In some instances, someone wants a farmer to make more money, so they compromise the nutritional requirements. And in some instances, the person doing the formulation wants the farmer to give the best to their animals. And then, in one way or the other, don't balance the economic value. So the two must balance. And this is why formulation is a very complicated activity. That's why I personally speak less when someone is trying to push me to make formulations. Formulation involves a lot of work. So we carry the whole of this load and put it on nutritional companies. So nutritional companies must ensure that they provide formulations that deliver economic value, but also deliver the necessary nutrients that animals requires to grow properly. Okay, so that is the importance of these nutritional companies. And as they come in, as in competition increase, thinking, research, and everything is also increasing. So meaning that in future, we will have something better. Okay? So, feed formulation depends on the production objectives of the farm. What do I mean in this? For example, if you're growing animals for slaughter, are they time fixed or weight fixed? In the finishing operation, we have two kinds of production. We have a production which is the commonest, the time fixed production, where we have our animals batched in different groups. They give birth in batches, wean in batches, and also go to the market, grow in batches and go to the market in batches. So an animal, a sow, is gestating for about 4 months, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, approximately 4 months. And it is going to lactate for 21 days, leave 1 week for cleaning the following unit, some days that it comes into the following unit, you know. So when you add the 21, the 7 days are utilized in managing the following unit. The dates of introduction of the sow in the following unit, and the dates the sow is leaving the following unit. So those are 5 months. The 4 months of gestation and the 1 month of lactation. Okay? So that means that after weaning, you serve the sow in about 5 days. So this sow will gestate for about 4 months. By the time this sow delivers, lactates, and wean off its piglets, the first group of animals it produced are ready for market. So those piglets must go to the market to create space for the forthcoming batch. So if you don't sell off these piglets, it means that you will not have space for the piglets that you're winning. So the houses are used in phases, in batches. This means that your operation is time fixed. You have to win when you have to win, because most sows have to enter the following unit. You have to go to the market at the time you have to go to the market, because you need space for another batch to arrive in the following unit. So weight fixed operations are operations that are usually requested by the market. Solomon, I lost the presentation, so hope you're working on it. The fixed weight operation is where your market demands that you sell to them animals of a given weight. For example, if you're selling to a processor and this processor wants heavy animals and they request you to finish your animals at 130 kilograms, and then they will pay an extra for that. Why not? You can do something like that. So in that case, you are weight fixed. So your animals don't go to the market until a given weight is achieved. And in that case, you need to invest in housing hugely so that you're not space limited at a given time T. The reproductive stage. So also formulation depends at the reproductive stage of the animal. There is no single feed for every stage of animal. Until today, people are still calling, asking for sow and winner. I really don't know who invented that. And I've seen it in many ancient publications. What is sow and winner meal? What does that mean? The phrase itself is wrong, sow and winner. So do you want to mean that this feed is given to the sow and the windy piglets, or something else? And then someone comes to buy sow and winner and is going to feed the sow and winner to all female animals on farm. That is a wrong approach in modern pig production. In modern pig production, feeding must be specialized. Feeding must be specialized. Each category, each reproductive stage requires different feeding solutions. The nutritional requirements of a gilt is not similar to the nutritional requirements of a gestating sow. The nutritional requirements of a gestating sow is not similar to the nutritional requirements of a lactating sow. When formulation is being done, all these are factored in. The nutritional requirements for these different stages are taken care of. Okay? So there is no single feedstuff that can serve the needs of all stages in the reproductive herd. The stage of growth. This is to the commercial herd. You can't say that you have one meal for pigs from the starter stage, the finisher stage. You need different categories of feeds from creep to the finisher feed. Creep feed, starter feed, grower feed, and finisher feed. The different stages demands for different nutrient levels, and therefore they must be catered for differently. Two main categories of feed formulas are needed for a farm that is doing farrowing to finish, and this includes the reproductive hard formulations, where we have the gill-trailing diety, the gestating sow diety, the lactating sow diety, and the commercial hard formulations, where we have the creep feed, we have the starter diety, we have the grower diety, and we have the finisher diety. Solomon? Okay. Performance is measurable. Sometimes we forget that we spend money to buy pig feed, and we also spend money to buy proper genetics. We are spending money on labor, we are spending money on utilities, and we want to recover our investment on the fixed costs as well. If you don't measure your farm performance, there is no way you're going to be sure whether you're doing things right or whether you will be able to recover your investment. This brings us down to record keeping. You need a scale on farm. As they eat the food, you must measure to ensure that they are giving the right return for every penny that you invest in them. So this is just to give you a framework of the performance parameters and the rationing of the feed when you're using modern genetics. The goal today is to have your animals go to the market at 20 to 22 weeks. 20 to 22 weeks. Commonly, the finishing period has been 24 weeks. But with all these improvements in genetics, the improvements in nutrition, your animals must be able to go to the market at 20 to 22 weeks. Therefore, you need to measure either weekly or monthly. And the most important aspects, most especially for the finishing herd, the commercial herd, is the average daily gain and the feed conversion ratio. So this is the average daily gain, the amount of weight that this pig gains on a daily basis, and the feed conversion ratio, the amount of food that you need for this pig to generate 1,000 grams of live body weight. So the structure, this is a generalized structure. With nucleus genetics, from 30 kilograms, the animal must be able to generate about 800 grams. So it goes on increasing. And by 50 kilograms, it should be at its maximum, 1,000 plus grams per day, if the feed you're using is right. So you need to measure. Buy a scale on farm, get books, track performance. You must go to the market at the right time, and you must be aware whether you're receiving back your money or wasting it. I think it is better if you recovered, you discover that you're not going to get a return on investment, you sell off the animals and reduce the amount of loss, other than waiting until you've lost it all. Okay, so it is better for you to keep on measuring from winning to finishing. Solomon, I think you missed some slides. You jumped some slides, but we will go back to them. No problem. Let's first finish up. No, it's okay. Let's first finish up. We'll go back to them. Okay. So we have two types of nutritional strategies. Let me call them concentrates. We have concentrates and premixes. In the market, you can access concentrates. Concentrates provide the largest percentage of protein that you need for your feed, and premixes provides how do I call them, the components to fix gaps in the different feedstuffs that you're using. If you're using a high protein concentrate, you need a little bit. Okay, you don't need any protein source. For example, if you're using the Q-Feed 30% concentrate, you only need to cater for the carbohydrate source. So you need maize and maize bran, and then the concentrate. But if you're using a premix, you need various feedstuffs. Okay? Now, this is to you who are using high protein concentrates. In modern pig production, it is very important for you to integrate the use of high protein concentrates and premixes. And I'll explain that more in the next slide. But let's look at the high protein concentrate. If you chose to use the high protein concentrate from the starter, from the starter, grower, to the finisher stage, you spend a little more money. So if you're using the Q-Feed starter concentrate, the Q-Feed grower, the Q-Feed finisher, you're going to use a little bit more money. Okay? Because high protein concentrates are a little bit more expensive, and you have no opportunity to source your own protein feedstuff. And the cost of production is around 430,000 Uganda shillings. So this cost is only on nutrition. If you consider the current price for broken maize and maize bran, your cost will be around 430,000. And I believe we have the cheapest concentrates on market. So depending on the type of concentrate you're using, this cost can even go higher. So there are many, of course, companies that are supplying high protein concentrates on market. It's not only Q-feed. So whichever you're using, the cost of production will be a little bit higher because you have less control over the feedstuffs. However, it is easy to deal with. A few feedstuffs are involved, therefore, it is very easy for you to achieve a uniform mixture. Time has gone and I want to be very fast. I want to finish in the next 5 minutes. So you see, 3 feedstuffs are involved. You have you have maize bran, you have the concentrate. So mixing becomes very easy. And unlike the low protein concentrates, so call them the premixes, a lot of feedstuffs are involved. So you need to put in extra effort to be able to come up with a uniformly mixed feed. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now let's look at the premixes. These can be called premixes. We many times call them low protein concentrates, but the reality is they are more or less premixes. So with the premixes or the low protein concentrates, you have the chance to source for your own protein source, feedstuffs. As you can see, if you are using Q-feed, I see someone is commenting about cow dyes. There is no hard feelings, brother or sister. Of course, I work with Q-feed, so it would be the best example for me to use. It's what I'm affiliated with more. So it would be the best example for me. But I'm not saying that I'm inclining you to use Q-feed or what, but it is the best example for me. I understand it better. So if you're using Q-feed, we recommend that you use the 30% concentrate at the starter stage. So even if you're not using Q-feed, you should make sure that your supplier gives you the high protein concentrate, because many farmers mess up. Many farmers mess up the starter stage feeding. If you're using premixes at the starter stage, you might end up, poorly mixing the feed stuff, the feed, or sourcing for feedstuffs of a quality that is not good. And once you mess up at the starter stage, it will be very difficult for you to unlock the production potential of your genetics. So it is very important that you properly handle the early growth of your pigs to ensure that you get the best out of them at their next phases of growth. So better to use the high protein concentrate, because fewer ingredients are involved. Therefore, there are higher chances of you making a homogeneous feed. And then start on the low protein concentrate at the grower stage. So at the grower stage, you start, for example, we have the 10%, you start using the 10%. You see, you need sunflour, you need meat and bone meal, all soya cake. I urge you to use the oil. I believe majority, if not all, nutritional companies will advise you to use the oiled soy. Why? Because during the process of making oil, this soy is properly roasted. If you're using full fat soy, you need to first roast it, to first cook it, to destroy the anti-nutritional factors in it. Okay? You have to first cook it to destroy the anti-nutritional factors. But you don't have to burn it. Because if you burn it, you as well make the protein in it unusable. So it must be cooked or roasted at a given temperature. Should not be burnt and should not be undercooked, because if you undercook it, there is a problem. The anti-nutritional factors will not be removed. If you overcook it, the proteins will be destroyed. Therefore, it must be, the heat must be balanced. And during the process of oil making, when this soy is taken to the oil making factory to extract oil from it, it is roasted first at a very good temperature. So the byproduct is very ideal. There is a regulated amount of oil in it, and even the protein in it is a little bit higher and accessible to the pig during digestion. So that's why the oiled soy is highly recommended. So if you're not using meat and bone meal, please try to use the oiled soy. So as you can see, quite a number of feedstuffs are involved. And they are fewer because this is a 10%. If you're using a lower percentage concentrate or a lower percentage premix, you might even need more than these feedstuffs. The number of feedstuffs might increase. Reality is, the more the feedstuffs, usually, the cheaper the cost of the final feed. Because each feedstuff, in a one way or the other, contributes to the different nutrient requirements. And therefore, lower protein is not bad. In fact, as our sector shifts to commercialization, it is the way to go. So like you can see, the cost of production goes hugely lower. Okay, so this would be my last slide. And I was going to show you through the different formulations, but time is fast spent. I don't know whether Solomon intended this to jump some slides for us to save time, but all the same, I believe this has been helpful, and I'll be glad. I don't know how much time we have to take questions if they are there, if we have the time. If not, then I wish you well. Thank you very much. Over to you, the moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulindwa. Always refreshing